Okay, hello everybody. So I'm going to go over, in this video, I'll go over a few of the slides for covalent bonds. So remember, covalent bonds is all about sharing electrons as opposed to ionic bonds, which is a transfer of electrons. So covalent bonds, if two atoms have the same or similar electronegativity, they're going to share those electrons. And you can see this here with oxygen, two oxygen atoms. They're going to share their electrons. So they're sharing those ones that are in the middle. There's one, two, three, four electrons that are being shared. Okay, so they share. Let me make it red. Atoms share electrons, and the structure that is formed when covalent bonds are shared share those electrons. So the keyword here I want you to see too is neutral. Covalent bonds, the atoms are neutral. Ionic bonds, atoms are charged. They form ions. Covalent bonds do not form ions. Okay, so covalent bonds, they form molecules. They form molecules. Another name for covalent bonds are molecular bonds. Let me put a little text box in here and put some text. Covalent bonds do not. How about do not form ions? Okay, and remember, an ion is a charged particle. I make that a little bigger. And then what if we do? What if we just insert some color in there? How about this? All right. Covalent bonds do not form ions. Sorry if that hurt your eyes. Okay. All right. So covalent bond is a type of a chemical bond. And here we have an animation where oxygen is sharing two electrons, one electron with this hydrogen, and another electron with this hydrogen. Okay, so again, they're formed by sharing electrons. They're formed between, I don't know if that got deleted, formed between nonmetals. Oh, I know what happened. Okay, so they form between nonmetals. I read for you. They do not form ions. Sharing happens in the outermost energy level, the valence shell with the valence. Doesn't have to be capitalized, but that's okay. Valence electrons. Okay. So remember that valence electrons are in the outermost energy level. And that's where bonding happens. Let me make another little text box up here for you. I feel like that's another super important point that we should discuss. Bonding, no matter if it's ionic bonding, no matter if it's covalent bonding, metallic bonding, bonding always occurs between or with valence electrons. Always. Bold it. And I want to add some color to this text box. So last one was blue. I'm going to make this one something that stands out. Green. Nice little green. There we go. So bonding always occurs between no comma there, valence electrons. Okay, see how these electrons here, this first orbital electrons, they're not being interfered with, only these valence electrons. Okay, so for covalent bonds, The number of covalent bonds that an atom can form or make is called the bonding capacity. And the bonding capacity depends on the number of valence electrons. Atoms with 7 valence electrons can make one covalent bond. Atoms with 6 valence electrons, for example, oxygen, sulfur, can make 2 covalent bonds. Okay? Atoms with 5 valence electrons can make 3 covalent bonds. Atoms with 4 valence electrons can make 4 covalent bonds. Okay, so see, this always has to add up to 8 because they're always considering the octet rule. You might be wondering, how do you know, Mr. S, how do you know how many valence electrons these atoms have? Well, just go over to our friend P table, all right? And you can see oxygen, sulfur are in group 6 or 16. So that last digit in 16, the 6, will tell you how many valence electrons those atoms have in that group or family. What about nitrogen? How do you know nitrogen has 5 valence electrons? How do you know phosphorus has 5 valence electrons? Well, it's in group 15. The last digit is a 5, so they have 5 valence electrons. What about carbon? What about sulfur? I'm sorry, what about carbon or silicon? So carbon is in group 14 or group 4. All right, so it can make 4 valence electrons. And same thing with the halogens, uh, fluorine, chlorine, and bromine. They're in group 17 or 7, so they can make 1 covalent bond. Okay? So I will be making a few more videos for these other slides. Again, the quick sum up for these first couple slides. Uh, Covalent bonding is about sharing electrons. Which electrons? The valence electrons, okay? And the group of neutral atoms that are formed by this type of bonding are called molecules. And we see I have a picture of a molecule right here. And it's important to know that these covalent bonds do not form ions, like ionic bonding, okay? Covalent bonds formed by sharing electrons form between nonmetals. Okay, remember how we determine which ones are nonmetals? So here's our staircase. Everything to the left of this staircase. Okay, so this stuff in blue, the light blue, and all this stuff over here is a metal. I mistakenly said at one point aluminum is a nonmetal. Okay, that's my bad. Aluminum is a metal. It's just kind of weird because it really only has one oxidation state. So these are blue for a reason. They're not in red like the transition metals. It's not really a transition metal, but it's still a metal. Okay, so I remember I told somebody aluminum wasn't really a metal. Maybe I said not. Maybe it's not a transition metal. Forget what I said. It's a metal, classified as a metal. Remember our 3 broad groups: metals, metalloids, and nonmetals. Everything to the left of this staircase, okay, here's your staircase. Everything under it and to the left is a metal, except for hydrogen, of course. Hydrogen is a nonmetal. Everything to the right of that staircase is a non-metal. All right, so you might be wondering, how are you knowing which one's a metal, which one's a non-metal? Well, there you go. It's also right here in these categories. If you put your mouse over, like I am, see, I'm putting my mouse over the metals. Oh, look what lights up. And again, aluminum lights up. So I was wrong, and that's okay. Correcting it now. The non-metals, all these dudes in the staircase, and then the metalloids, all these dudes in the staircase, and then the non-metals, everything else. So I think P tables is super helpful website, super helpful resource for us. And I mean, really doesn't get any much better than this. So covalent bonds form between nonmetals. They do not form ions. I want to put an exclamation point after that. That's super important. And again, the sharing happens in the outermost energy level. All right, and then bonding capacity. One Seven valence electrons, one covalent bond. Six valence electrons, two covalent bonds. Five valence electrons, three covalent bonds, and then four valence electrons, four covalent bonds. Okay, it has to add up to eight. That's what we're talking about. Octet rule. Always bringing back that octet rule, especially when we're talking about bonding. Alrighty.